Your regional radio forecast. Cloudy skies tonight with a slight chance for showers. Lows dip down to about 48. Winds out of the east, 8 to 15 miles per hour. 64 tomorrow. Overcast skies. Slight chance of rain showers tomorrow night. Lows around 45. Overcast skies. Get weather anytime by calling 824-6101 or online at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Right now, 55.
CNB Bank and Trust has been helping open doors for Central Illinois farmers since 1854. Find out why they're among Illinois' top ag lenders by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Bob Raddings of the Bob Raddings family of dealerships. See our huge inventory of about 2,000 vehicles by clicking on our ad at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
You're listening to WTIM, your information station. Joining us right now on the phone is Taylorville's football coach, head coach Jeb Odom. And, Coach, I want to just start off the conversation by saying congrats on a huge win yesterday. It took me all night, but I think my heart's finally back to normal. I can't imagine how you must have felt over on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not the way we wanted to earn it, but, we knew the Thalta was a good squad. We knew they had some athletes, the quarterback, kind of a game changer, and they played a really good first half, but luckily the second half, the seniors were really kind of rallied around us and able to get the job done in the second half.
I want to talk to you a little bit about this season. Obviously, brand new quarterback that started this year. Junior Isaac Repsher. We talked a little bit at Chili Fest earlier this year, but how important was it for him to really get that team off to a good start? It seems like the guys really rallied around him, especially at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think his biggest attribute is he's a pretty good leader. I mean, not being in that position, before, it really shows up in practice. He's the one that's kind of barking at everybody to get lined up, and when things aren't going right, he's the first one to kind of step up and get the ship righted. So that, to me, that's been the biggest thing that I've been impressed with him is how he leads in practice and how he holds his teammates accountable.
When you look at this team and what they were able to do, you look at the schedule. The schedule seemed a little bit unfavorable for you guys, especially off to the bat. But you guys really handled a lot of adversity early, and it was the running game that really seemed to carry you guys. How important was that running game for you guys throughout the season?
Well, we knew it was going to be a strength of ours for this year. We knew we had some size up front and some experience coming back, and then we knew we had three good running backs, Dawson Jenkins and Spencer and Owen. So we knew we were going to have to lean on that, especially with a newer quarterback. And that's kind of what Coach Castleman did with the offense is let those guys, do what they do and keep us in ball games and then let chips fall where they may.
Coach, Ben Peabody was a really big asset for you as far as a kicker goes. I know it's been an area that's been kind of a little bit of a struggle for Taylorville when it comes to special teams. How nice is it to be on the sidelines and know that you have a reliable kicker that can come in?
Well, it's a weapon. I mean, all you have to do is watch all of our games this year, whether it was Olney's guy putting in the end zone, Freeburg's guy kicking it through the end zone, Mount Zion. If you can put a starting offense inside the 20, it's a big morale boost. And when it happens to you and you don't have a return, and you don't have any sort of chance to make a big play, it is sort of demoralizing. So having been there in the kickoff game has been awesome. And plus, PAT's been rock solid this year, and having 4 or 5 field goals as well. So. It is a weapon for sure.
You guys were a really good football team to the point that you were even playing basically for the conference championship against Mount Zion. What does that mean to you for this program and what goals you set for yourself at the beginning of the year?
It's everything. I mean, all you can do is play one game at a time. But when you got a chance, during week 8, play for a conference championship or a share of it versus the number 4A team in the state of Illinois, those opportunities don't come very often, and we really harped that week to take advantage of the opportunity to live in it in the moment and take advantage of opportunities. Didn't play as well as we'd hoped against Mount Zion. The final score, it is what it is, but we were proud of the kids and proud of the effort and proud of just being in the moment.
How nice has it been? I know the Repsher injury was brutal, but how nice has it been to have Cameron Smith come in and be a reliable backup quarterback for you?
Yeah, he's always been able to throw the football. There's no doubt about that. In practice, he throws some really outstanding, a very catchable football for all of our guys. So just getting him caught up with the verbiage and getting him live game reps has been big for us. Obviously going into the playoffs, having those 2.5 games under his belt, well, hopefully it pays dividends. But when you get in the playoffs, you're playing really good competition. So he's going to have to, keep working on his game, keep stepping up, and we're going to have to kind of keep rallying around him.
All right. And for you, for this year, what really stuck out for you from this team? What will stick with you long after this season is done?
Every group is different. We spent a lot of time talking about last year's group, but this year's group just kind of, did their own thing. There's 16 seniors. They're all very close. They all hang out a lot off the field as well. So watching the unique personalities of this year's squad versus other years has been fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie, it's been challenging at times. It's also been fun to watch. It's been, showing up to work every day and then working with those kids. I'll remember that for sure.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Reed. He had a couple questions for you, Reed.
Yeah, this is Reed Cam. I've been the co-commentator for the broadcast, and you've gotten a front row look at the way this team has grown in terms of what they've produced on the field. I've been able to see some of it on from the press box. What's something in terms of an area of growth that stands out as something that could maybe threaten opponents in the playoffs?
I'd like to think we're kind of rounding into a very three-pronged attack. Defense pitched a shutout. Second half last night, they've been playing lights out last 3 or 4 weeks. Offense, we're going to rally around Cam again and rely on the running game. And then, like I said, we mentioned Ben Peabody as well. So I'd like to think the teams are going to make sure that they have all their T's crossed and I's dotted in all three phases of the game when they play it.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate your time this evening and wishing you all the best. And we'll be looking forward to seeing where we go next week.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Coach Jeb Odom talking to us a little bit about what has been another successful season for Taylorville. And I know 5-4, you can sit there and say, well, it wasn't. It's a good year for that squad. It's a good. They had a lot of turnover from last year. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost a lot of big pieces for that team, especially on the offensive line. But the defense was really spectacular. When you go back and you look at this Taylorville football schedule, yeah, they had that opening loss to Richland County, 60-36. Isaac Repsher was still kind of getting his feet wet. But then you start looking at some of these games, and 41-27. They put up a big win against Canton. They had a 22-14 loss to Freeburg in a game that I still maintain we probably should have won. A tough loss against Muhammad where they were tied at halftime, and a interception that happened right at the beginning of the third quarter kind of shifted momentum and really kind of changed the course of that game moving forward. A 28-21 win over Effingham, a 50-6 win over Mattoon, and a 57-14 win over Charleston, a 25-12 loss to Mount Zion, and then 24-17 win against Civic Memorial, and it was a 17-7 lead at halftime, and Taylorville really came back strong in that second half. But Reed, you got to see a lot of this. This team seems better than what they are on paper.
They seem so much better. And I think back to, two of those big wins, Effingham and Canton. And those were games where they really struggled they didn't necessarily struggle in terms of how they performed, but it took a lot of effort to get the win. And I also think a lot about how the team has evolved. That's why I asked him about what is something that could really cause some problems for opponents in the playoffs, because we've seen so much, whether it's Isaac Repsher's decision making, and I know obviously he's out at this point, but that to how well they've spread the ball around. Other players have been able to step up on offense. They've been more effective on the other side of the ball as well. It's been great to watch. It's fun to watch, whether you're the coach or us in the booth. So that's been really enjoyable.
And one of the things that made some of these teams that we faced, like Freeburg, so crazy was Freeburg really had a three-headed attack. Their quarterback could run, they had a tight end that could run, and they had multiple running backs that could move the ball. So you never knew what they were doing as far as who was going to get the ball, to the point where they wildcatted a lot. And there'd be times where he'd be like, all right, number 18 nope, number 12 has the ball, as they would go running through. And you're starting to see that with Taylorville a little bit, because they have so many weapons at running back. Dawson Jenkins, who's huge, who can just be more like a fullback as far as powering through. Mateer, who never goes down ever, and then of course Spencer Brown, who has the speed. So when you look at those three guys and what they bring, they have a running back for almost every single situation. Not to mention the fact that Cameron Smith can run too. So when you are able to get an opportunity like that, you really can become a dangerous squad as far as being able to run the ball the way that you want to. It's just going to be a question of whether or not they're going to be able to get through some of these defenses that they may face come postseason.
Yeah, that'll be the big question. But having 3 running backs, it's easy to forget the fact that you gotta go through the whole game, and especially if you're gonna have a run heavy offense, which is what Taylorville really needed to come back last night. Having those options is huge.
So we have a few moments left here before we have to take a break here, probably about a minute and a half before we have to take a break. So big thanks to Coach Duckett, Coach Ramsey, and Coach Odom for taking a few minutes to talk to us here. Listen, they're all planning their playoff parties. They've all got stuff going on. So for them to take a few minutes and talk to us this evening, it is absolutely fantastic. But another football season has come and gone, guys. Can you believe it?
I actually can't. I was talking to Ty last night about it and, trying to soak up kind of like senior night, a couple guys and a couple names that for me have now the last 2 years been like ingrained as James Lee Jesse is going to kick that extra point. He's going to maybe knock down a field goal like he did last night. Evan Pearsall. And I don't know. It wasn't obviously the game Central A&M wanted, but I tell you what, 9 weeks gone. It has absolutely flown from the first week against Clinton to now. Has been almost the fastest football season I feel like I've been a part of.
Reed, we have 1 minute left. This was, and I can say it now because it's the end of the year, but this was your first football season calling football. Tell our listeners at home a little bit about that experience.
Well, it was a great experience. It was something I was looking forward to when I came over to these stations. I grew up in Vermont where football is really not that big. Illinois, it's obviously a much larger deal. And to see the passion both in Taylorville and at some of the away grounds, it's a great experience. I love it.
It really is. And now Reed gets to experience basketball for the first time. So we are so excited to be getting Reed all these reps as far as doing it. But what a fantastic year for football for many of our programs. When we come back, we will get a lot of the highlights and we'll get a lot of the results that we are looking for when it comes to who these teams are going to be playing and where they might be headed for the playoffs. So we're going to have all of that coming up in just a little bit here, right here on WTIM. And we'll be back with more of the Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show brought to you by Prairie Farms right here on WTIM, your information station. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Fall is finally here, and that means cooler weather, football, and Halloween celebrations featuring the delicious taste of Prairie Farm seasonal milk in 1-quart cartons. This year's lineup includes fantastic fall flavors like pumpkin spice, peppermint mocha, and chocolate mint. Enjoy them on their own or as part of your favorite fall cocktail. Look for Prairie Farms flavored milk cartons at your favorite grocery stores, and then visit prairiefarms.com for coupons and delicious fall recipes. Celebrate the taste of fall with locally made, naturally delicious Prairie Farms flavored milk.
WTIM. This is Reed Kamai reporting. Illinois agriculture's richness in corn, soybeans, and pumpkins contributes not just to the direct business of growing and selling them, but also in agro-tourism. As the name suggests, this concept combines agriculture and tourism, creating fun experiences for all who visit. Agro-tourism can encompass anything from buying a pumpkin at a patch to visiting a petting zoo. This form of tourism can serve both local participants and those who visit from other parts of the country or even abroad. Valerie Belusco is a community and economic development educator with the University of Illinois Extension. She says the purpose of agro-tourism is to use agriculture to attract visitors and educate them on the topic.
So it's something that kind of brings in visitors and allows them to engage and learn about activities while working on a farm or ranch or even just kind of visiting something agriculture related. So right now in this season, when most people think of agritourism, especially in Illinois being the #1 pumpkin state, we think of pumpkin patches and everything that comes along with pumpkin patches. So although it is fun, there's also always kind of that educational experience in the background, just helping get people there to understand kind of what farming is like and what being outdoors working, outdoors is like.
Many different kinds of experiences fall under the category of agritourism. Many people likely have done these activities without realizing it.
Also, though, just like interactive animal displays. So sometimes people don't think about it, but petting zoos are huge for agritourism. Right now we have a lot of like festivals and corn mazes. Those are always big. Fishing is big. And when we think about fishing, we're always thinking about lakes. But a lot of people have ponds farms or creeks on their farms. And so, you can bring in and do guided fishing tours there. Rodeos, always a big one that draws the big crowd, whether it's the little kid rodeos or, the professional bull riders. Mm-hmm. And then even kind of vacation types of examples. So you can have like a farm stay or a farm wedding or bed and breakfast outside or camping experiences. That all falls under agritourism.
For farms and other businesses looking to incorporate agritourism into their services, there are a number of factors to consider. They include relevant land usage regulations and tax implications. Get local news anytime at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com and every hour on WTIM, your only local news radio. This is Reed Kamai reporting.
This is staff meteorologist Paul Trombley with your regional radio forecast. Lows level off around 48 tonight under overcast skies with a slight chance of rain showers, easterly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 64. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow night. Slight chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 45. Get weather anytime by calling 824-6101 or online at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Right now, 54.
CNB Bank and Trust has been helping open doors for Central Illinois farmers since 1854. Find out why they're among Illinois' top ag lenders by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Member FDIC.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville. 96.1 FM Taylorville. 107.5 FM Shelbyville. 107.9 FM Pena Nokomis.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Mary Rose. There has been a deadly weekend party in North Carolina. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
The sheriff in Robeson County, North Carolina, says 13 people were shot at a large weekend party near Maxton in the southeastern part of the state. 2 of the 13 were killed. Authorities say more than 150 people fled the scene of the party when officers arrived, and they're asking anyone with information about what happened to contact sheriff's investigators. Authorities say no one has been arrested, but there is no current threat to the community, and the shooting appears to be an isolated incident. I'm Donna Warder.
This past week, President Trump and Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signed a critical minerals deal at the White House as the continent's rich rare earth resources. And economist Steve Moore finds it shocking that the U.S. depends on China for critical minerals.
The United States has more of these minerals, the critical minerals, the precious minerals, the rare earths than any other country in the world. We got them in Colorado. We got them in Utah. We got them in the Dakotas. We got them in California. We got them in West Virginia. Why aren't we? We haven't been mining in this country since Bill Clinton put moratoriums on mining, and we have put ourselves in this position.
JP Morgan Chase wants out of paying $115 million legal tab for convicted fraudsters.
For nearly 3 years, JP Morgan Chase has picked up the legal tab of Charlie Javis and Olivier Amar, the 2 convicted fraudsters who sold their financial aid startup Frank to the bank. But the bank said in a court filing late Friday that the 2 have racked up an astronomical 9-figure legal bill and far exceeds any reasonable amount that the 2 may have needed for their defense. According to the filing, Javis' team of lawyers across 5 law firms have billed J.P. Morgan approximately $60.1 million in legal fees and expenses, while Amar's lawyers have billed the bank roughly $55.2 million in fees. Bernie Bennett reporting.
More on these stories at townhall.com.
Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, launching a new project, or just looking for that extra edge, your brain is your most valuable asset. Now there's a way to support it every single day. Think Factor. From the makers of Relief Factor, Think Factor is built to help you stay sharp, nurture your memory, boost your attention. It unlocks the mental clarity and precision you need to stay ahead of the game, no matter the challenge. After a few weeks of taking Relief Factor, I noticed a dramatic difference in my focus, my memory, my concentration. And look, the longer you take Think Factor, the better it works. This is not a one-off. You want to take Think Factor regularly. If you're a go-getter who refuses to settle, Think Factor can help you perform at your best and keep your edge. Call 800-4RELIEF. That's 800-4RELIEF, or just visit relieffactor.com to order Think Factor. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. Your first bottle is just $19.95. Think Factor. Think clearer, perform better daily with Think Factor.
President Trump is currently overseeing a significant renovation of the East Wing of the White House, which includes the construction of a new ballroom. President Trump's critics are upset with the president's renovation of the East Wing of the White House. Historian Victor Davis Hanson reminds them that he's not the first president to make changes.
Richard Nixon put in a bowling alley. Jerry Ford wanted a pool. He tore up the garden out there, put it there. I think it's still there. I've seen it. So presidents do this all the time, and FDR had a place where he could exercise. It became, I think, later the press club.
The primary reason for the renovation is to create a larger entertaining space. The current East Room can only hold about 200 people. The new ballroom aims to eliminate the need for large events to be held in temporary tents on the South Lawn. The president says me and some friends of mine will pay for the ballroom. Breaking news at townhall.com. Canada Prime Minister has announced that he wants to boost its non-U.S. exports.
In an evening address to Canadians aired by Canadian network Pool, Prime Minister Carney announced a new shift in the country's economic direction.
Our goal for Canada is to double our non-U.S. exports over the course of the next decade, generating more than $300 billion more in trade. And that's new orders for Canadian resources, technologies, and expertise.
President Trump has been threatening Canada's economy with tariffs. I'm Karen Shemas.
A penny shortage is affecting retailers nationwide. The Treasury Department halted penny production in May, and the U.S. Mint cranked out its last batch of pennies in August. Now, a growing number of convenience stores and major chains, including Kroger and Home Depot, report issues. The American Banking Association says about 250 billion pennies are still in circulation. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Fall means football, festivals, and holiday fun made better with the refreshing glass of Prairie Farms lemonade. Prairie Farms is proud to partner with the Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, a national leader in the fight against childhood cancer. Look for the special QR code on your favorite bottle or jug of Prairie Farms lemonade and help us raise a minimum of $100,000 in support of child cancer research. Make a difference for families impacted by childhood cancer by choosing crisp, refreshing Prairie Farms lemonade.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. Leroy Clamola alongside Grayson Bauman, Reed Camby. And I feel that I can relax now. We've got our interviews out of the way. We can now focus on the good stuff. So we're going to take a look as it has already been posted. We are up and running with Class 1A, and some results or some stuff that sticks out to us here as some of these matchups. But Galena will take on Stockton. Hayworth will take on Princeville. Knoxville will take on Clifton, and Dwight will take on Rushville. Grayson, you have it up as well?
I do.
You want to pull up game 5 through 8?
Yeah, sure. I got you. Kewanee, I hope. Weathersfield is also a 2 seed. They're taking on 15 seed Stark County. Toulon. Man, some names right there. You left me with at matchup number 5, a 7 versus 10 matchup.
You figured me out.
Well,
you figured me out.
Chicago Crane 7-2 is their record. The 7 seed taking on Mackinac Deer Creek 6-3 with a 10 seed there. Lena Winslow, obviously just a perennial playoff team. There's no questions about that. Lena Winslow with a 3 seed taking on 14 seeded Forreston. Lena Winslow at an 8-1 record. And lastly here, GCMS Gibson City Melvin Sibley 7-2. Taking on Ottawa Marquette at 6-3. That's a 6-11 matchup.
As far as Lena's concerned, it's not a question of whether they'll go to the postseason. It's a question of how far they will go in the postseason. They make it almost every year. As far as they are the Ohio State of Class 1A. I tell you what, fantastic program.
Pretty much.
And for people that have been listening to WTIM for a long time, former host Bill Bernardoni, he's from Ottawa, so he's all going to be excited that Marquette made the playoffs at 6-3. Taking a look at Reed, you have it up?
I have it up.
Pull up game 9 through 12, my friend.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's see how well I pronounce some of these names. So we've got Hardin, a number 1 seed, and they'll be hosting Villa Grove at 16. And then in the 8-9 matchup next to them in the bracket, we've got Greenfield against Cesar. What's the name of the parenthetical? Valier. That's so a couple of co-ops.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit further north it might be. But so we got a couple co-ops in the 8-9 matchup. Number 4, we've got Casey Westfield. They'll be hosting Bridgeport. And then for the 5-12 matchup, we've got a couple of schools not too far from us in Taylorville in Tuscola and Nokomis. Tuscola, the number 5 seed, Nokomis, of course, a number 12. So that'll be an exciting matchup. I can't wait to hear how that one turns out.
Back-to-back playoff years for Nokomis. They had a really successful year last year and are still finding success this year. They love that program. They've done such a fantastic job with it. And when we went and did the school stuff,
the high school road
tour, they were very proud of their football program and what they've accomplished there with that little school of theirs, as far as being able to just find some success on the gridiron.
And I think actually we'll be having a few of the high school captains coming on the morning show, I think on Tuesday. So Scott Dorr, superintendent over there, helping set that up. But yeah, Nokomis making it there into game 12 as a 12 seed, 6-3 on the year, taking on Tuscola at 7-2. I honestly feel like that's not a bad place if you're Nokomis right there. Honestly, I don't mind the seeding for them. So I really think they've got a good chance there. Game 12 of the 1A bracket.
Game 13, we'll have number 2 Camp Point Central taking on number 15 Winchester West Central Co-op. Number 7 Mount Sterling Brown County will take on number 10 Athens, who's at 6-3 and 7-2. That'll be another good game right there between those two squads. Number 3 Dupo 8-1 taking on Salt Fork. Number 14 out of Catlin 5-4, and then final matchup of Class 1A for us is number 6 Vivian Oakwood taking on Carrollton at 6-3. All right. So then after that, of course, we'll continue. The championship game will be taking place on Friday, November 28th at 10 a.m. So that'll be the championship game for Class 1A. We have Class 2A. We'll take a look at that before we take our first commercial break. We'll take a look at Class 2A. We'll start off with round 1 as number 1 Taylor Ridge Rockridge takes on number 16 Carthage. In game 2, at number 8 Richards out of Chicago at 7-2 will take on Tri-Valley. Number 9 Downs, that's also 7-2. Game 3 will see number 4 Seneca taking on number 13 Riverdale or Port Byron. And game 4 will be number 5 Wilmington taking on West Hancock Co-op out of Hamilton, who's sitting at the number 12 seed at 6-3.
I think for me, isn't it interesting though that the 8 and 9 and the 7 and 10, it really those are always the fun, those are always the fun seeds to choose from, whether it's March Madness or, whatever the case might be, right? Those are a lot of times the best matchups. But I mean, I'd be really interested to see Tri-Valley. 7-2 record on the year, go up Richards of Chicago, and then you have that next bracket with the 7 and 10, and you have 2 more so really those are tight matchups, and those are good teams taking on. I like the 7 and 10s and the 8 and 9s almost more than your 1 versus 16s, really.
Well, let's not take anything away. If you're 6-3, you've had a successful year. You've absolutely had a successful year if you can pull 6 wins out of that season, because you're playing a lot of conference games. You're playing a lot of teams that those are going to be some tough matchups. So to go 6-3, that's you're doing all right for yourself.
And Seneca as a 4 seed with a 9-0 record. I mean, that kind of shows 2A. Almost to me so far at first glance, it's an interesting break for 2A and how everything kind of shaped up. Do you want to get into games 5 through 8?
Go ahead.
Do we want to try and do
ahead.
so? We'll do so with El Paso Gridley, a 9-0 team, a number 2 seed team. They will be. That's crazy. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They're taking on Marshall of Chicago. Game 6 of the 2A bracket. Number 7 Sterling. That's Newman Central Catholic at 7-2, taking on Colfax Ridgeview Lexington. That co-op at 7-2. Game 7 Eastland Pearl City. That co-op at 5-4, taking on a 9-0 Farmington team at a number 3 seed. And game 8, rounding out this little 4-man set here, number 6 Aurora Christian will have Erie Prophetstown, the co-op, standing at 6-3 on the road, visiting them. Game 8 is another 6 through 11. A lot of good matchups in 2A. Honestly, so far, I'm liking 2A almost more than 1A.
Reed, you want to grab games 9 through 12, sir?
Let us do it. Yes. So we've got the number 1 seed on that part of the bracket, Johnston City. They'll host Trenton in that 116 matchup. The 8-9 one. This is always the tasty one. Chester and Maroa Forsyth. That should be a good matchup. Next, we've got number 4 Flora hosting number 13 Nashville. So we've got that, and then finally in that portion of the bracket, Pana. So Pana, we were talking to them earlier. They are the number 5 seed, and they're going to host. Okay, this is a long co-op here. Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Alvin, and that is the last matchup in that portion of this bracket.
I think a few things to note right there, right? So Chester is number 8 seed at 8-1. You have Pan as a 5 seed at 8-1. So it's just, again, you're looking at so many different things if you're the IHSA. But
and you hit on some of those early in the night, Reed, as far as what the matchups are and what they look for as far as strength of schedule, and opponent wins becomes a big category as far as opponent wins on who you face in that first round.
And so they had a lot of respect for some of those wins that Mark Ramsey got. I know he had kind of a little easier stretch, we'll call it, in that later stages of the season, but man. Pana at number 5, game number 12, taking on Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Alvin. I mean, what's next? Another 5th school, probably. I mean, that's the way things are shaping up. But Leroy, can you round us out here for the last 4?
Game 13, number 2, Westville 9-0 will take on Shelbyville 5-4. Shelbyville coming in as the number 15 seed, so they're going to have a tough matchup in that first round against a very good Westville program. DuQuoin taking on Carlinville 8-1 versus a 7-2. That's number 7 versus number 10 seed. And then number 3, Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond 9-0 taking on Marshall, who is 5-4. And finally, Cumberland out of Toledo taking on Sullivan, who is number 11. Sullivan's had 2 or 3 really good years of football as well. We used to do some coverage out in Sullivan as far as doing some morning show interviews out there and wishing them the best in the postseason as well. But some really close to home teams there as we get into Class 2A, and we're starting to get into some of these really good matchups that we are watching and that we are seeing. But what sticks out to you guys the most out of 1A and 2A so far?
1A, 2A, man, I got to say, honestly, the matchup for Pana as a 5 seed against a 6-3 Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Alvin obviously stands out. I honestly, Maroa Forsyth at 7-2, they do get a win last night, which was a big one for them following 2 straight losses, but standing at 7-2 as a 9 seed there, those 8-9 matchups, those to me, that's like, man, you've got good football. You know for a fact you've got good football and good teams. Same again with March Madness, but I think the 8-9 seeds 2A wise, I like them.
I like the matchup between Westville and Shelbyville. Now, this is a 2-15. Now, I know on paper that looks like it's going to be difficult for Shelbyville, but that side, like they know playoff experience really well. I'm sure they'll have learned plenty from recent seasons, including some of the players who were part of those runs. So, I would fancy them to at least, really give themselves a good chance at pulling off a win.
Westville coming in, as Reed said, 9-0. They picked up a 52-13 win yesterday against Iroquois West, but Iroquois West was 1-8. So some very, very interesting matchups there. And I'll be honest with you guys, I looked at the Westville schedule. I don't know a single school that's on that schedule that they played. So you get some of these schools, and should be interesting. So Shelbyville will have a tough matchup there against Westville, but we're excited to see what Coach Duckett brings to that Shelbyville team as far as having to travel and hopefully be able to pick up a road win. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we will have much more for you as we get to Class 3A here in just a little bit on WTIM, your information station, and the Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show.
All in football season, a great time for celebration and the award-winning taste of Prairie Farms Sour Cream and Dips. Prairie Farms Sour Cream and Dips are sourced with fresh cream from local dairy farms before being combined with the finest ingredients to make the taste sensations that your party deserves. Try our fan favorite dips in French onion or jalapeno fiesta flavors. Then top off your tacos with our tangy sour cream. Visit prairiefarms.com for coupons and enter for a chance to win a dairy prize package. Support local dairy farms by enjoying the delicious taste of Prairie Farms Sour Cream and Dips.
Pana schools provide excellence in education and are rooted in the Pana community. Become a part of Panther Pride and find out the great things happening in Pana schools by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Jansen's Heating and Air is the home of Dr. Comfort, focusing on customer care for heating and air conditioning across Central Illinois for some 35 years. Find out their services, specials, and coupons by clicking their icon on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. I couldn't get to my music quick enough, guys. I failed. I'm sorry. But we are back here as we are doing the WTIM Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show, brought to you by Prairie Farms and Leroy Klamola, alongside Reed Campbell and Grayson Bauman, bringing you all of the action here this evening. And we are going through all of the matchups here. We had Class 1A and Class 2A just a few moments ago. We're going to hit up Class 3A right now that just got released here. And number 1, Richmond Burton, 9-0, will take on number 16, Poplar Grove North Boone, who is 5-4. Number 8, Chicago Noble Ronner, taking on Central Catholic out of Aurora. Number 9, Bloomington, Central Catholic to be precise, 9-0, taking on Princeton, 6-3. And then Monmouth Roseville, 8-1, taking on 6-3 Montino. So some matchups there in games 1 through 4. Grayson?
Yeah, well, I mean, Montano. That's really, and Central Catholic out of Bloomington as well. Kind of those two right there. But game 5 through 8, man, you really start to get a little outside of our area of coverage, at least. But we'll let you know, of course. Byron, I know that Byron is a good squad, 9-0 as a number 2 seed, taking on number 15 seeded Oregon at 5-4.
They got to travel all the way to Oregon.
Game 5, all the way. Could you imagine? Hopefully they take the trail. Number 7, Johnsonburg, taking on Pecatonic. It is a co-op there, 6-3 for number 10 Pecatonic. Number 7, Johnsburg at 7-2. I can't imagine. Number 3, Kankakee McNamara. They were 9-0 as a number 3 seed, taking on number 14 Herscher, standing at 6-3 on the year. Lastly, here for game number 8, number 6 Chicago Hope Academy, 8-1. They'll have Elmhurst on the road. IC Catholic with a 6-3 record on the road headed towards them. So in that bracket, Byron, that's the name that stands out to me.
Yeah. Reed, you've got two teams that Taylorville is quite familiar with as they play both of them in basketball. Let's hit games 9 through 12, sir.
All right. Well, we've got Williamsville as the number 1 seed in this part of the bracket, and they'll host Hillsboro. Then next up, what appears, I think this is Portac. I think that's what they're called. Petersburg, they're at 8 seed hosting Fairfield. So that'll be that exciting matchup there. Tolono, is that how it's pronounced?
Mm-hmm.
Tolono. Okay. Tolono Unity. They're a 4 seed, so they'll host Mount Carmel. And then in the other matchup, we've got Monticello hosting Paris. Monticello, the 5 seed, Paris, the 12 seed. And we've heard plenty from our folks in the Clinton area about Monticello. So looking forward to seeing what they pull off in this part of the playoffs.
Well, a couple things to note, right? Monticello, the Sages. Okay, cool to see them. But they're taking on the Paris, I believe, Tigers.
Yep.
I believe is what the Paris Tigers are.
Yep.
That's a little bit of a distance away, but they did an all right job of scheduling that. But a 5 versus 12 seed, right? 5 seed in Monticello at 7-2, 12 seed at 6-3 versus Paris. Again, it just kind of shows you that there is a lot sandwiched in between the 1 and 16 seeds. I mean, you've got to find a place for them somewhere. And this is where the talks of that expanded playoff picture are starting to kind of maybe change things up. As of next year, we don't know. I believe that will come around in December. But yeah, man, you just feel like so much is sandwiched in between that 1 and 16 seed. But Williamsville, not too far from us necessarily, and they're taking on Hillsboro.
The Hilltoppers.
I like Williamsville in that one.
Yeah, definitely. Taking a look at game 13, number 2, Vandalia, who we talked about earlier. They're the only ones to beat Pana this year, and they're 3A, of course. Vandalia sitting at number 2, they'll take on Christopher Ziegler Royalton Co-op, who is 5-4. Olympia out of Stanford, 6-3, taking on Greenville, who is also 6-3. That's a 7-10 matchup. Benton, who is number 3, 9-0, taking on St. Joseph's Ogden at 5-4. And Frankfurt, 6-3, taking on Roxana, 6-3. Roxana is the shells, guys. Roxana's shells that is there. It looks, and I'm telling you, it looks just like the Shell logo from the gas station. It's the exact same thing. So we played Taylorville played Roxana in basketball in the Litchfield tournament. So that's the only reason I know who Roxana is. So
and the only reason I remember is because it was just last year. So thankfully that was the case. But Roxana, I believe, might even be the ones kind of pushing the region playoff picture type of thing, or the region structure rather than all these different conferences right now. Don't quote me on that, but I believe they're behind some of the IHSA kind of maybe bending of the books.
So I don't got to drive 2.5 hours to go cover a playoff game?
I don't know. I can't promise you that, but what I can tell you is they've got a region breakdown. We can look at it at some point and take a peek and see what we think. But interestingly enough, 3A, Benton, going to be very good. Williamsville, going to be very good. And I kind of like Byron. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong, but something tells me that might be another good year for them.
We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we will have, it's up already, we're going to have Class 4A, and we'll tell you who Taylorville is facing in just a few moments. You're listening to WTIM and the Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show, brought to you by Prairie Farms.
Glass of Prairie Farms Lemonade. Prairie Farms is proud to partner with the Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, a national leader in the fight against childhood cancer. Look for the special QR code on your favorite bottle or jug of Prairie Farms Lemonade and help us raise a minimum of $100,000 in support of child cancer research. Make a difference for families impacted by childhood cancer by choosing crisp, refreshing Prairie Farms Lemonade.
When it comes to connecting with America's farmers and ranchers, nothing beats the authentic voice of Ag Radio. Farm broadcasters have been the voice of rural America since 1944, building trusted relationships with agricultural producers across generations. Today, the network of over 140 Ag radio stations reaches farmers and ranchers during their most productive hours when they're actively working their operations and making business decisions. What makes Ag Radio uniquely effective? Farmers listen to farm broadcasters for information that directly impacts their livelihood. When your message is delivered alongside crucial weather updates, market reports, and agricultural news, it receives the same attention and credibility. Farm Radio Connects offers agricultural advertisers targeted access to this engaged audience through professionals who understand both broadcasting and agriculture. According to the National Association of Farm Broadcasting, 78% of farmers consider information from farm broadcasters highly trustworthy. When you need to reach rural America effectively, choose the voices they already trust. Visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com and discover how Ag Radio can elevate your agricultural marketing strategy.
This is Dwayne Wheeler, the police chief of the city of Taylorville. As a law enforcement officer, I've seen the impact that depression and suicide have on many people. Many times, those contemplating suicide endure considerable suffering and distress, but there is help. If you feel depressed or lonely, there are many resources to help you. You can call a trusted relative, friend, or minister, or call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That is 1-800-273-TALK. All of us are here to help you. Thank you.
Carl Krumsick here from Krumsick Monument Company in Taylorville, Illinois. Find out the many services we provide by clicking our icon on the obituaries page of TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is Blaine Cornwell with Prairie State Insurance. To learn more about our products and services, click our icon on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is staff meteorologist Paul Trombley with your regional radio forecast. Lows level off around 48 tonight under overcast skies with a slight chance of rain showers, easterly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 64. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow night. Slight chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 45. Get weather anytime by calling 824-6101 or online at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Right now, 54.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. Leroy Clamola alongside Reed Kama and Grayson Bauman as we bring you all of the action here from the Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show. It is 8:30 8:26 actually. Well, 8:27 now. And we are excited to be bringing you all of the action here. We've already done Class 1A. We've done 2A. We've done 3A. But now it is time for the all-important 4A. And so we'll get things kicked off here for our 4A class with Montini, 9-0, number 1 Lombard, taking on Urban Prep Bronzeville. That'll be a Chicago versus Chicago matchup as Urban Prep Bronzeville comes in at 4-5. Up next, number 8 Marengo, taking on Notre Dame out of Peoria, 7-2. And then 8-1 Dixon, who's had a really good football program the last few years, will take on North out of Woodstock, 6-3. Coal City 7-2 will wrap up the game 1 through 4 as they take on number 12 Sterling, who is 6-3.
First thing of note, right? Number 16 Chicago Urban Prep Bronzeville, 4-5. I believe that's the first 4-5 team we've seen within any of the brackets, whether that be 1A, 2A, or 3A. So if you're Lombard, you probably feel all right about that. I could be wrong.
And there were, when you went, I was looking at 4 and 5 schools that were in there because Effingham was listed as a potential team that could make the playoffs. Yeah, Effingham was last on there, but there were 3, 6, 9, 11 4 and 5 teams that were listed on this list as far as being 4 and 5, and Chicago Urban Prep was actually in the middle. So they, along with Westinghouse College Prep, Leroy, and Reed Custer, Evergreen Park and Effingham, also Marist, Chicago, Edwardsville, Loyola Academy out of Wilmette, and Catholic Academy out of Joliet. Palos Heights, Shepherd were all 4 and 5. Actually, Wilmette Loyola Academy was actually 4 and 4 on the season. But so there were quite a few 4 and 4 teams that were looking. But you're right, Grayson. This was the first 4 and 5 team that we have seen that got in.
Just a little something to note there, but as a number 4 seed as well, Dixon.
And their reward is they get to take on Montini. So I mean, congratulations on making the playoffs, I guess.
As a 4 and 5 squad, that's a pretty tough deal when you're talking Urban Prep Bronzeville.
Montini Catholic Broncos were 9-0, 3-0 in conference. They outscored their opponents 337-141. Including a 55-54 win over Carmel. I'm trying to get schools that I am actually familiar with. They had a win against Marist that was 28-21. So actually, Montini had some very close games score-wise with some of these schools that they matched up with.
And then sprinkled in probably with a few blowouts by the sounds of things there. And as you make your way then into game 5, Morris as a 2 seed at 8-1. That kind of sticks out just a touch. But Woodstock, they'll be playing the 15-seeded Woodstock at 5-4. Number 7, Metamora will have Chicago South Shore on the road to them. Both teams sit at 7-2 for game 6. Number 3, Macomb at 8-1 has Country Club Hills or Hillcrest at 5-4. That's who they'll be taking on in game number 7. Geneseo 7-2 taking on Rochelle 6-3. The number 11-seeded Rochelle at 6-3 for game number 8. Right there, Morris, obviously.
Although that Geneseo Rochelle matchup will probably be pretty good, to be honest with you.
I would believe so.
Yeah. Reed, you've got a familiar opponent in game 9. Talk a little bit about the matchups that you see.
Yeah, so we've got Richland County, Taylorville's first opponent, who they lost to away by a considerable amount. They finished the season unbeaten, well, the regular season at least, and that means they will host Jacksonville, the 16th seed there, which went 5-4. We've got the 8-9 matchup next. This is Centralia and Cahokia. So Centralia will host that one. After that, Breeze Central and Columbia are the next matchup. Breeze Central, the 4 seed, Columbia 13. And then we've actually got another team that Taylorville faced, Freeburg, hosting Highland, and that's the 5-12 matchup, rounding out that part of the bracket.
So some good matchups there in Centralia, of course, or not Centralia, Breeze Central, who's Centralia's area. Centralia's got a really good basketball program, one of the best basketball programs in the entire country. Actually, Centralia, there's a school in Tennessee. They have a running running thing going for their basketball programs. But Centralia, a team that we play in basketball, they actually have a big scoreboard in the front of their gym that's got a big basketball on it, and then their win total underneath it. And every time they win, they hit the button and it updates their win total. But they have one of the most winningest programs in all of the United States as far as basketball goes. Their gym is nicer than some colleges that I've gone to by far.
Taking from a successful basketball program and then maybe now pairing that with the
really
quality
good football
program. I mean, obviously there's a lot to be excited about if you're Centralia, but something tells me, gentlemen, that this final bracket, the fourth and final bracket for 4A, is what you guys really want to
no mention of Taylorville yet. We'll see if they're in this group. Carterville 9-0 taking on Marquette out of Alton. Carterville. There's a lot of, we'll talk about it in a second, but there's a lot of 9-0 and 8-1 teams in this bracket. Notre Dame Quincy 7-2 taking on SHG 6-3. Rochester beat Sacred Heart Griffin this year. That's been a struggle for Rochester. They've not had some good success against SHG, two programs that were pretty evenly matched football-wise, and it's crazy when you think about how good Rochester football has been over the last 5 to 10 years. Rochester, it will face Taylorville. Number 3 Rochester, 8-1, will take on 5-4 Taylorville, who comes in as the number 14 seed. So that game will be at Rochester. It does not have a time listed on here as of yet, or a date listed as of yet, but that is who Taylorville will face. They will take on Rochester. And then wrapping up the 4A bracket, number 6 Mount Zion 8-1. Number 6 bracket, you're 8-1, taking on number 11 Waterloo, who is 6-3. There are a lot, and I said it a little bit earlier, but there are a lot of 9-0, 8-1, and even 7-2 teams that are in this group right here.
No doubt about it. But interestingly enough, then still that kind of 4 and 5 that you squeak in at the very top, with Lombard taking on Chicago Urban Prep Bronzeville. Taylorville taking on Rochester. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily want to see Mount Zion, though, either, if you are Taylorville, but you played a pretty good game against Mount Zion, and you're a familiar foe within the Apollo Conference. But the breakdown shakes the way of Rochester. How do we feel maybe making our way up a quick John over to Rochester, taking on the Rockets?
So in 6 years of me being here, Taylorville has never played Rochester in football. However, from talking to fans and they used to be in the same conference. They used to play quite heavily, and I'm telling you that the two teams kind of have a little bit of a rivalry, even if it's not a real rivalry. And part of that extends from basketball and volleyball and other sports like that. But this is going to kind of be a chippy football game for reasons that shouldn't be chippy. You know what I mean? Like, the two teams don't face each other that often at all. But because the close proximity and because of their relationships in other sports, I expect this game to be very, very high-tempered.
I do too. Anything you're expecting, maybe, or thinking kind of about the way that shook out for your guys?
Yeah, I mean, Taylorville, this is a game where they're going to want to have a strong start. I feel like it's one that could get away from them if they don't. So I'll be interested to see how that turns out. I would also hope for Taylorville that, the shorter travel is maybe going to help them a little bit, slightly more familiar surroundings, and, maybe their legs won't ache so much after getting off the bus. So that might help them a little bit.
We've got time, so let's take a look at Rochester's schedule here and who they played this season. Again, Rochester finished 8-1. They beat Gibson Southern 42-21, held off Mount Zion on the road 28-24. So that was at Mount Zion. They crushed Lincoln 56-0. Lincoln, which I'm going to just give a side note here. Lincoln finished the year 1-8. Lincoln has one of the best basketball programs in the country, but the last time they made the football playoffs was the year I was born, 1982. So another rough year for Lincoln football on the season as far as they're concerned. Rochester will picked up a loss to Glenwood, 43-42. So a 43-42 loss to Glenwood. I don't have any specifics on that, but if it's 1 point in overtime, I would imagine they went for 2 and didn't make it. So that's what I'm looking at with that. They picked up a 56-7 win over Normal University, 63-24 win over Decatur Eisenhower, 51-14 win over MacArthur, 55-10 win over Springfield, and then that 31-28 win over Sacred Heart Griffin to wrap up the season yesterday. They are considered the number 27 team in the state, according to Max Preps. So going to be a very tough matchup for Taylorville. But listen, this is a Taylorville team that played very well against Muhammad Seymour. They're a team that played very well against Mount Zion. They just need to clean up their penalties a little bit and play the game that they know that they can play. And part of that comes down to having a decent run game. So
yeah, that's exactly what we'll be looking for in that game. I'm sure they'll have been given quite the talking to about the penalties.
Otherwise than that, guys, anything else stand out to you about Class 4A and what you see in those brackets?
Class 4A, Freeburg, 8-1. So you guys got a little taste of Freeburg and what they brought. Richland County, 9-0, a number 1 seed in the bracket as well. Some familiar faces there for you guys, but I got to say, when it comes to Sacred Heart Griffin as a 10 seed, 6-3, you play Rochester, as you just mentioned there, to kind of round out your year. You're happy about that. I would like to say, even though you go into the playoffs with a loss, I guess we'll call it, but you go in obviously with a winning record, you want to play a quality opponent. You don't want to take on a 1-8, an 0-9 squad before you head to the playoffs and kind of get that lull game. I like that for Sacred Heart Griffin as they are planning to take on Quincy Notre Dame, a good squad on the hardwood for sure, and in baseball. Football wise, don't know as much about Quincy Notre Dame though.
So the winner of Taylorville Rochester will take on the winner of Waterloo Mount Zion. Now a little bit of a backstory on that. Mount Zion lost to Rochester last year in a very, very close game. It was 20-14. That was the final score. These two teams, playoff wise, know each other very, very well. But if Taylorville is able to survive against Rochester, they could potentially be looking at another rematch against Mount Zion in what could be a Apollo Conference matchup right there.
It seems to me like the IHSA obviously knows what they're doing, because you see it with brackets being made and you go, God, come on, there's no way that worked out perfectly.
Listen, I will take it over driving the 2 hours down south to
and look, I don't disagree with you by any means, but then all of a sudden Mount Zion's still in that bracket too for the, they know what they're doing with that. It reminds me of that Pana Shelbyville game last year in the playoffs. So they know what's going on. They know that there is some Route 29, maybe north of Route 29 rivalry. I know the south of Route 29 rivalry is with Pana. But, very interesting to see you guys have to take on Rochester. And I don't know, gentlemen. I don't know what to make of that for you, though.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will have just a little bit of a look at Class 5A. Only one school that we're watching in 5A. There are quite a few Chicago schools, but we will take a look at Class 5A as we have time to do that. And we'll even take a look at some of the big schools that will be taking place later on in the show. You are watching and listening to the WTIM Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show, brought to you by Prairie Farms. We'll be right back in just a moment, right here on WTIM, your information station.
Fall means football, festivals, and holiday fun made better with the refreshing glass of Prairie Farms lemonade. Prairie Farms is proud to partner with the Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, a national leader in the fight against childhood cancer. Look for the special QR code on your favorite bottle or jug of Prairie Farms lemonade and help us raise a minimum of $100,000 in support of child cancer research. Make a difference for families impacted by childhood cancer by choosing crisp, refreshing Prairie Farms lemonade.
When it comes to connecting with America's farmers and ranchers, nothing beats the authentic voice of Ag Radio. Farm broadcasters have been the voice of rural America since 1944, building trusted relationships with agricultural producers across generations. Today, the network of over 140 Ag radio stations reaches farmers and ranchers during their most productive hours when they're actively working their operations and making business decisions. What makes Ag Radio uniquely effective? Farmers listen to farm broadcasters for information that directly impacts their livelihood. When your message is delivered along alongside crucial weather updates, market reports, and agricultural news, it receives the same attention and credibility. Farm Radio Connects offers agricultural advertisers targeted access to this engaged audience through professionals who understand both broadcasting and agriculture. According to the National Association of Farm Broadcasting, 78% of farmers consider information from farm broadcasters highly trustworthy. When you need to reach rural America effectively, choose the voices they already trust. Visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com and discover how Ag Radio can elevate your agricultural marketing strategy.
Carl Krumsick here from Krumsick Monument Company in Taylorville, Illinois. Find out the many services we provide by clicking our icon on the obituaries page of TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is Blaine Cornwell with Prairie State Insurance. To learn more about our products and services, click our icon on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is staff meteorologist Paul Trombley with your regional radio forecast. Lows level off around 48 tonight under overcast skies with a slight chance of rain showers, easterly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 64. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow night. Slight chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 45. Get weather anytime by calling 824-6101 or online at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Right now, 54.
Welcome back to Week. I am your patiently right here alongside Reed Camai and Grayson Bauman as we bringing you all the action here this evening of the Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show. Say that 5 times fast. And don't actually say it 5 times fast. But no, we're excited to be bringing you all the action here this evening as we are wrapping things up in what has been a fantastic show for you. We're going to hit on some last little bit of stuff before we've got about 10 minutes left here. We'll hit some of these last little bit of stuff getting us through here on our matchups this evening. We're going to jump over to 5A. And again, there's not a whole lot of matchups that are local to us, but we will still talk about them because that's what we are being told to do. So we will get that taken care of and get that for you. Prairie Ridge, number 1, out of Crystal Lake, taking on Vernon Hills, 5-4. Morgan Park out of Chicago, taking on St. Francis out of Wheaton. Both those schools 6-3. Agriculture Science out of Chicago, 8-1, taking on King out of Chicago, 5-4. And Corliss Co-op, 7-2, taking on Lakeview, 5-4. Those are game 1 through 4 of our 5A matchups.
Nothing of note other than the fact that Morgan Park is where Io DeSumo hails from. That's
okay,
about the only thing I know from that.
There's a school named Ag Science, so that's they're apparently very good at football.
8-1, yeah. It's kind of Chicago Ag Science is a pretty crazy name, no doubt about it. As you make your way into game 5, you got Belvedere North at 9-0, Chicago Noble/Bulls, the number 15.
I've got a note on that later on. I've got a note on that.
No problem there. I'm interested to hear because I'm not sure what's going on there. Maple Park, Caneland, 7-2. Lake Villa, the Lakes at 6-3. That is 7-10. That being a 7-10 matchup there. Number 3, Wakanda at 9-0. Chicago St. Patrick at 5-4. A 3-14 seeded game for number 7 there, or game 7 there. And Cary Grove at number 6, taking on Sycamore High School. 7-2 is Cary. Sycamore at 5-4. Game number 8 of the 5A bracket.
All right, so I got to tell you, number 15, Noble Bulls out of Chicago. It is Bulls College Prep. And I was talking to Reed a little bit early before the show started. Bulls College Prep finished the season 5-4. Their logo, you know how like Taylorville has the tornado? They literally have the Chicago Bulls Bull as their logo.
Benny Bull?
Right. No, it's the actual right, but it's their actual Bulls logo. With the words prep written over it. So they are Bulls College Prep. They've actually finished 3-4 in conference. But when you think of Bulls, you think of basketball, right? Bulls College Prep is awful at basketball. They won 1 game on the season and were outscored by a lot last year. So I don't know. For me, I just find it funny that if you're going to have the logo of a basketball program, just like if somebody has a logo of the Buccaneers logo, right? I would expect them to be very good at football. If somebody has a logo that looks like a sock, I would expect them to be very good at baseball. At least this last year, the last couple of years, it has not been the case for Bulls College Prep, but they did make the football playoffs, so they've got something going on for them.
Well, that's definitely a tough look, I would have to say, as a Bulls prep school, or you get the chance to use the Bulls logo, the official Chicago Bulls logo. You would hope more than one win comes with that, but I mean, look at the Chicago Bulls now; they aren't very good either. So, Class 5A football wise, thanks for filling us in, because I mean, my God, what is going on up there? There's a lot.
Reed, you've got some familiar matchups in game 9 through 12. Go ahead and hit those up.
That's right. So the number 1 seed in this section is Washington. So we got multiple Washington teams that are playing well in the sport of football, and they'll be hosting Normal University. I think I'll be commentating on their girls basketball team in a little bit. So that's the 1-16 matchup. 8 and 9. The 8 seed this is a name that should sound familiar, in Muhammad Seymour. So they've got the 8 seed, and they'll host Marion in that matchup. Then the number 4 seed, Kankakee, will host, is it Lamont or Lemont? Lamont. Okay. Kankakee versus Lamont in the 4-13 matchup. And New Lenox of Providence Catholic will host Springfield. So that's the 5-12 matchup in that quarter of the bracket.
So interesting to note of Muhammad Seymour football. They play in 5A, and the last few years, they've been absolutely crushed in the playoffs. So they will dominate the regular season, get to the playoffs, and just suffer tough losses. So to combat that this year, they've scheduled themselves a very tough non-conference schedule. They took on the Morton Potters, who they lost 28-27 to start their season off, and Morris, who we talked about earlier, as Morris having a very, very great football year. Morris, they lost to Morris 33-14. Otherwise than that, they picked up a 45-16 win over Sycamore, and then went on their huge Apollo Conference run with wins over Taylorville, Mount Zion, Effingham, Mattoon, Charleston, and Richwoods. They actually lost to Mount Zion 35-23, which is why that Mount Zion Taylorville game was so important as far as having a share of the conference because of that loss to Mount Zion. But Muhammad trying to figure out a way to kind of up their ante as far as you'll see it with college teams a lot, right? College basketball teams will schedule a little bit of a tougher non-conference schedule so that when it gets to March, they look a little bit better for the brackets and for the guys that make all the decisions about if they even make the tournament.
Well, and if you're considering football, the team that comes to mind, Notre Dame, you know, you're an independent school, so all of a sudden you get into conference schedules for other schools, so it's hard to take away from them. You can't ask Alabama to play within the SEC conference schedule, right? So you've got to get them in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. So on the football side, that the first team that comes to mind is Notre Dame, but on the basketball side, man, can't wait for college basketball. I love PK 85. There's so many tournaments that go on, and I'm not going to inundate folks with all those, but man, non-con matters. And for Muhammad Seymour, I think putting good tests at the start of your school year, of your season, is no problem at all. So I'd like to hear that from Muhammad Seymour.
Otherwise, Springfield High School 5-4 taking on Providence Catholic out of New Lenox, who's 6-3. Taking a look at the rest of this bracket, number 2 Oak Forest 8-1 taking on Centennial Champaign at 5-4. Bloomington will take on Mascoutah. Both schools 6-3. Peoria High School 7-2. They will take on MacArthur out of Decatur 5-4. And then Morton, as we talked about a little bit ago, Morton 6-3 will take on Thornton Fractional North of Calumet City to round out the 5A matchup. So not a whole lot there other than maybe Springfield High School and Muhammad Seymour as far as schools that are relative to us, although we are familiar with Normal University and Bloomington High School and Peoria as well. But locally wise, Springfield High School and Muhammad are probably the two biggest names on there. Taking a look at 6A, as we do have a few moments left. Not a whole lot of substance here as far as schools that are relative to us. Pekin taking on Dunlap in game 16. Quincy Senior taking on Crete. St. Lawrence taking on Oaklawn. But otherwise than that, Community West out of Normal taking on Thornwood, South Holland. Not a whole lot of really close matchups there as far as 6A, but you get into some of the bigger Chicago schools when you start getting into 6A. And then 7A and 8A have also been released. Actually, 8A has not been released yet, but that's all Chicago schools up there. So we will not get into all of that. We're going to wrap things up here. We have about 4 minutes left here for our show this evening. And we'll have a chance to talk to both of you guys here a little bit. What has stuck out to you the most here about the playoffs, maybe this football season, and what you're expecting from Grayson? I know Central A&M is not in it, but taking a look at some of these other matchups, what stuck out to you the most out of tonight's kind of playoff previews?
So then let's go back to 1A for just a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
In doing so, I want to start with Hardin Calhoun. So that team last year is the foe that Central A&M had headed following a 5-4 season. We went to Hardin Calhoun. Hardin Calhoun let us know that they were
good.
They were there.
Okay.
That team, I think, is something to hold on to. I know they brought a lot of returning experience back with them into the season. I know they lost some guys as well, but I would keep an eye out for Hardin Calhoun. I was awfully impressed with them, in a beautiful setting, might I add, for high school football. Tuscola at 7-2, Nokomis at 6-3. That matchup I will be keeping an eye out in 1A on for multiple reasons, not just because Tuscola and Nokomis are close to us, but I think that is going to be a really good game. So for a 5-12 seed, that we kind of talked about the 8 and 9s and the 7s and the 10s being really good, I think that's a really good game. 5-12 seeds taking on at Tuscola at the 5, Nokomis at the 12. GCMS, that's another team of note in there. Mackinac, Deer Creek. There's a lot of just quality teams from around the area for 1A. Lena Winslow, though. I'm never going to not mention Lena Winslow because I won't make that mistake ever again. I found out how good they were, and they delivered. Hayworth, another team of note. Obviously, Central A&M having taken them on just last night. They looked really good. 59-10 win for them. So I'm going back to 1A for just a moment.
Yep. And one thing to note, Mount Zion will take on Waterloo. Waterloo's the school that beat Taylorville last year in the playoffs, 33-30, in what was a very, very close matchup between Waterloo took a huge lead. Taylorville came storming back in the second half. Sound familiar? And but ended up falling short, that 33-30 loss last year to Waterloo. But Waterloo will take on Mount Zion, and then Taylorville, of course, taking on Rochester there. Reed, what stuck out to you the most about what you've seen this evening?
Well, one of the teams I'm going to be keeping an eye on, I'm excited to see is Pana. You know, I would expect that they'll win in the first round, then they could have to face Flora in the next round, and then after that, we'll see what happens. But you know, a team that has produced so much from all the change that has happened for them so far this year. And it's going to be an exciting opportunity for them to see what they're able to come up with in some of what should be exciting playoff matchups.
And a lot of good matchups here coming for a lot of these programs, and especially some of these local area schools, as far as what we've seen from them. And of course, that Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Allen team out of Payne that will face Payne, a 6-3. With some big wins in that program for them, including wins over Westville, Iroquois West, Salt Fork, Watsika, Moments, GRFC, and then a loss to Oakwood to wrap up their season. So they did have a couple losses to Clifton Central and Westville. So that's the school that will take on Payne, Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Alvin. Where I'm from, Southern Minnesota, had a lot of the schools that like my school was Janesville, Waldorf, Pemberton. So it was 3 little schools that all combined. At one time, it used to be that the elementary school was in Waldorf, and then the middle school was in Pemberton. But by the time I got there, they were all in Janesville. So, but you had to learn all the little acronyms from all the little area schools, as far as NRHEG, WEM, JWP, MOS, JRFDL. You know, it was just a whole lot of stuff. Not just Illinois that has a lot of those little co-ops, and especially as football programs start to kind of decline a little bit, you're going to start seeing a lot of these smaller schools join up to try to put together programs. So that's going to do it for us from here. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And we'll be on the road against Rochester, WTIM, your information station. Thanks, guys, for all your help this evening. And You guys have a great night. All right, that's going to do it for us from here. You've been listening to the WTIM Prairie Farms Playoff Pigskin Preview Show, brought to you by Prairie Farms.
This is Reed Kim. I'm reporting. Lawmakers returned to Springfield this week for the second and final week of the fall veto session, where several major proposals tied to the Democrats' spending agenda have drawn attention. Illinois House Minority Deputy Leader Noreen Hammond of Macomb discusses the proposed tax and spending plans under consideration during the veto